don't know that we've ever said we're not into paying massive bonuses. What we've said is that our shareholders deserve to get paid along with our employees. So if you're not profitable, you've got to be more modest in what you're prepared to do on compensation. Now, we've turned. Morgan Stanley is now 4 or 5 years of growth and profitability, continuously improving, and we pay competitively for our people in the market.
The Chief Executive of Morgan Stanley, James Gorman, there speaking exclusively to Bloomberg about how the bank ensures it retains its top talent. And this week, we're focusing on risk. Let's take a look at the risk involved in managing talent. What challenges do companies face in retaining their top employees? Joining us now is ManpowerGroup UK Managing Director, Mark Cahill. Mark, very good morning to you. Just looking at yesterday's wage data, which was released out of the UK, and as we know, weekly earnings rose on a 3-month basis by 1.3%. Inflation is at 1.2%, so for once, for the first time in 4 years, I think, we have 5 years, we have real wage growth of 0.1%.
Fantastic.
Does a swallow make a summer or not?
Sadly not, and I think the devil's in the detail on some of that,
right.
Because what we're seeing in that is those that have skills can demand much higher salary increases than those that are perhaps just entering the market still. So we look at an hourglass of employment at the moment. Those that have skills can demand high wages and are demanding. I was speaking to someone in construction yesterday. In January they were paying a bricklayer £500 a week. Now they're having to pay them £1,000 a week, and it's rising. Those coming into the market at the bottom end, sadly, there's still too many on minimum wage.
The other fact is, we just heard from James Gorman there saying, look, our bankers have been through a fairly tough time over the past 5 years. Some people would, of course, decry that. And there would be people that said bankers are still paid too much. Where is the city in the retention of talent? Because having key talent in financial markets is what generates income, isn't it?
Of course. It generates income, it generates growth as well. And that's still what we...
And tax.
And tax that
enough.
pays, that helps for the whole welfare system. But I think we have to keep looking at where the wealth is going to come from. Productivity is still a question for us, I think, in the UK. We're not really hearing much about productivity in our marketplace. Small increases in wage, as you say there, but is productivity going to follow that? I think that's an open question for us as well.
You say, Mark, there's an oversupply of graduate-ready individuals and an undersupply of job-ready candidates. What can graduates do to make themselves more ready for employment?
I think whenever someone going through university, college or vocational training, whatever work experience they can get will be a great fillip for them in terms of trying to get a job in the future. And you have to be tenacious at this. So as an individual coming out of university now, I would say be very tenacious about knocking on doors, asking for work, perhaps not setting your expectations too high, and be prepared to work your way through an organisation as well. It's not just going to be delivered to you just because you've got a degree.
Obviously things haven't changed at all. Not, 25 years ago, I can remember looking for an internship, and it was pretty darn hard. What do employers... I mean, Boris just talked about, the student side. From the employer side, I like what you said in your notes, which is stop waiting for government to change the curriculum.
Yep.
Engage.
Yep. Industry
needs to engage with education is it too cliche to say at a grassroots level or at a local level?
Do you know what? I think it's happening. I think it's been happening for a good couple of years now. Industry really getting engaged with education, local schools, big employers in local areas getting engaged with the academies, getting engaged with the schools, but more has to be done. It's just not enough happening. We've got youth unemployment now, it's down at 16.2%, I want to say. Still a vast improvement on what we see across Europe, but still not good enough. I think business is getting it right. I think government has to listen to that and help education get engaged with business in a more ready way. We see some schools that are better than others as well.
It's interesting you say that about the UK versus Europe, because there's a wonderful chart of the day today on the Bloomberg system, Mark, which says, and it shows it, Britain has created as many jobs over the last 4 years as the Euro region has lost. Working age employment here rose by 1.4 million to 29.4 million in the second quarter versus 2010. In the 18 nations that share the euro, it dropped by 1.4 million. That's a huge disparity, isn't it?
And we've got more people in work now than we've had for many a year. Over 30 million now in work in the UK. We've got more women in work as well in the UK, and that's another area. It's not just about youth unemployment or youth employment, as we would say. It's also about that whole diversity issue and getting more females back into the workplace as well.
But do we have a more deregulated employment market relative to Europe? We do, but still a lot of people, you know, are, as you say, on minimum wage. I mean, there's 0 hours contracts. There's a lot of controversy around our deregulated market, isn't there?
So you talk about deregulated. I talk about the flexible market.
Okay.
And I think here in the UK, it's been one of the things that has helped our economy now over the last 4 or 5 years to actually come through. I look at some of our colleagues in Europe, and they've got such strict regulations. It's not helping them to get people into work, to gain work experience, to be able to get that next job, and to create growth ultimately.
Are you feeling a sense a wind of change will happen in Europe when it comes to flexible labour? Mark, it's happened a bit in Spain, but
and Ireland.
And Ireland too. We're going to be talking later to one of Ireland's state ministers. But do you sense that it will happen in countries like Italy, which central bankers are crying out for?
Yeah. Structural reform, I think, is going to take time. There's too much uncertainty out there right now. I think Ireland's a great example where we're seeing great growth in employment levels, and we're predicting good growth again at the start of next year for Ireland in particular. So reform is happening. It's going to take time. There's too much uncertainty yet across Europe in terms of where that change is going to come from and how we're going to generate new jobs and new growth.
Mark, been great to chat to you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Mark Cahill there, Managing Director at ManpowerGroup UK. Coming up, pushing 80 and not backing down. Legendary actress Dame Judi Dench refuses to kick the retirement bucket and says the thought of it drives her to do more. It's the newspaper.
Who does that remind you of?
For most people, when they think about global risks, they think about what they hear on the news or read in the newspaper, but they often don't make that link with what goes on in their own individual business. The inability to raise capital, for example, for investment due to macroeconomic situation, and even the combination of economic and environmental changes. When an economy is suffering in recession and then also suffers severe weather damage, when people realized these things were combining together, it made them realize how truly systemic global risk is. The flip side of risk is opportunity. And I think where risk management is going nowadays is to really understand the uncertainties that are associated with any particular trend or even a trigger event. But we can make better decisions if we really understand the risks that we're dealing with.